Hey, welcome everyone to the 12th Annual Film Fest Petaluma. I'm Mike Traina, the festival director, and this is the second of our 2021 short film panels, Global Visions. The festival's had a long tradition of creating a World Shorts Showcase, and I'm sure if you've seen this show, it does not disappoint. It feels like the festival's been a long time coming since the pandemic started. And although we miss our friends at the Mystic Theater and our public audience, we're so grateful to the amazing Alexander Valley Film Society for being such great hosts and collaborators in making this year's virtual event possible. I also want to give a huge shout out to my programming team, who's collectively viewed over 1,000 short films to create this year's showcase. I also want to acknowledge our primary sponsor, Santa Rosa Junior College, particularly the Petaluma campus, which is the home of the Petaluma Film Alliance, and our extraordinary theater, the Carol L. Ellis Auditorium, where we can't wait to reopen for film screenings. I know we have some JC students watching today. We hope they can get some questions in the second half of our panel. And I just will say the college offers a great mix of film studies and film production classes. So if you want to learn more about the craft of filmmaking, check us out. Although today we're in cyberspace, I also want to acknowledge that we'd normally be gathering on the traditional land of the Coast Miwok people, past and present, and we honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it through the generations. A couple housekeeping notes. If you need any tech assistance during the festival, you can go to alexanderfilmsociety.org. They have an FAQ there with some live chat assistance. We're providing live audio captioning through Zoom. You just have to click the CC button at the bottom of your screen. Post your questions in the chat and we'll try to cover as many as possible. Please be on your best behavior. This is a safe space for everyone to celebrate film, artists, and the stories they tell. And finally, don't forget to vote on your favorite shorts. You can do that on the page where you stream the films. The audience favorite will receive a $1,000 cash prize, courtesy of our friends at the Alexander Valley Film Society. With that, I am just so excited about this panel. We have such an amazing array of film directors here to talk about work that have signed in from all over the world. So let me introduce them to you now. From South Africa, the writer-director of UMAMA, Talia Smith. Also from South Africa, one of her lead actors, Malibongwe Mdwaba. From Bahrain, the writer-director of JILBAB, Jaan Balushi. From France, the writer-director of HOMESICK, Koya Kamura. And hopefully we're having a little technical trouble. From Mexico City, the writer-director of Water Dreams, Pablo Ortiz. So welcome everybody. It is so great to have you here, and I'm so excited to chat about your films with you. And we're going to tackle them in the order that they're presented in the show. So Talia, I'm gonna begin with you. And I think before we even dig into your film, I know you are a grad of NYU Tisch School of the Arts. It's one of our country's premier film schools. I know your project is associated with it. So my first question is just, can you tell us just a little bit about the experience working there and how it sort of got this project in motion?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. So I've lived in South Africa my whole life, and my dream was to go to NYU. And so when I got in, it was the first time that I was around people who were also wanting to be filmmakers, because where I was from, it was not that at all. But one thing I started to notice was that I knew so much about Americans and American culture because of what I was exposed to on television and movies and pop culture. But they didn't know a lot about South Africa. So I started writing for my script classes. I started writing stories about South Africa, where I was from, and stories from home. And one of them was UMAMA in my sophomore year. And I took that to my final year at NYU, where you have to pitch your project and then they pick the projects that get to be made. And I thought my film definitely wouldn't get picked because it was so hard to make. It was going to be in a different country, but I got chosen. And when I got chosen, at first I was very excited and then hit with immediate anxiety because it is very hard to make a film overseas, especially when I was in New York at the time, but we were producing everything in New York and trying to make it all happen in South Africa. So it was a very interesting experience, and I learned so much from my time at NYU. So yeah.
Of course, I assume most people watching today will have already seen your film. So rather than ask a broad question about the inspiration of your story, I'm going to ask you, can you tell us who Susan Sencho is?
Yeah, definitely. So Susan Sencho, well, let me explain it this way. When I was in America, I had pictures of Susan up on in my dorm room, and this is what inspired the film, because people would, or my friends would ask me, who is she? And I didn't know how to describe her, because she's our domestic helper, but she's so much more than that. She was like a second mother to me growing up, and so that's how I would describe her to people, as my second mother, which is when I started to inspect the relationship and the reason why I wrote the film.
I saw on your website, I think it might have been a video you produced for Kickstarter or fundraising or something like that, a testimonial where you call her a warrior. And some viewers might find that contradictory with the idea of a domestic worker. And I wonder if you could just speak a little bit about both those roles that she played in your life.
Yeah, I think to me, something that has always inspired me is the role of a mother and how selfless you are as a mother. And so for her to choose to be the second mother to children that weren't her own, all the more so, that was so selfless to me. And then she spent so much time away from her family, and she sacrificed so much for them so that their life could be better, or that they could have the life that she dreamed to have. And so to me, that's a warrior, which is why I called her that.
Let's bring Malibongwe into the conversation. Can you describe how did you get involved in the project? How did the two of you meet? Just hear a little backstory on the casting. Then I have some more questions about that.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, first of all, and hi to everyone who's watching. So Talia and I didn't know her at all. She didn't know me. It's just the creative gods who just made a plan for us to come together. We have mutual friends, and in that way, she suggested me to her. And then I was in the casting room, and I remember that day like it was yesterday, about a year or two ago. But yeah, that's how we met. Yeah.
Can you tell us just a little bit about your process as an actor? You know, in the film, Tabiso is criticized at one point for being, or he describes, you know, I'm a black boy, and when I'm a sellout, to others I'm a thug, or his mother calls him a thug.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the converging labels and identities, and kind of your perspective of how you wanted to bring that to the performance.
Yeah. Well, to be quite honest, these were not too foreign to me personally. You know, I also grew up in a township, and I do know, you know, when you choose a certain kind of life or choose a different kind of path, you are then labeled because you are not going with the norm or what everyone is sort of going with, and so it wasn't too foreign for me. And then, therefore, my process as well, I allowed myself to to tap into those moments where I was called names because I was the kid who just so happened to be getting good grades in school, and my friends were not getting good grades. So that was a problem as well. I'm like, so what do you want me to do? It wasn't too foreign for me, and I think I say this time and again that tapping into Thabiso was not really hard because I knew and I understand what he's going through, because this is, quite frankly, a story that every young Black South African is going through, really. Yeah.
I think it's quite obvious to the world that the Black Lives Matter movement is having a moment in the US right now, illuminating a lot of entrenched systematic racism in our system and emphasizing how dangerous it can be for young Black men in America. I wonder if you could reflect on the plight of young Black men in South Africa and how, in your view, the situation may be both similar and different than in the United States.
I think it is a little bit similar because we do have Black on Black violence in South Africa, but I think on that side it's quite heightened, or maybe I don't know if it's just the way I'm reading into it, but it's quite heavy and it makes you question, like, do you actually have space in society, and how much of that space can you actually occupy? Because when I time and again read on these cases, it's like normal people. One day, maybe if I move to that side, maybe it might be me. And in South Africa, it's kind of the same thing as well, where Black on Black violence is a thing, and our government is really taking it lightly. In terms of trying to really scrutinize the situation and find solutions to the problem. So it's quite heartbreaking, to say the least, but I'm crossing fingers that in the future it gets sorted out.
Talia, I know this film has had a very impressive festival run and a lot of success. It was awarded a Student Academy Award Gold. I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about the festival run and the award from the Academy, and did this open doors for you as a short filmmaker? What opportunities have come out of the production of this project?
Yeah, making this film, it was my first. It was my first like proper film that I was dedicating myself to. And so I went in it with the mindset of, I'm going to make mistakes and it's going to be okay because I'm going to learn from them, which is kind of what I hope to get. And then I got a Student Academy Award and I was like, wow, this is far beyond anything I could have imagined. And going through the festival circuit, it was also that we didn't know a lot. We kind of went on Film Freeway, selected festivals that we liked, that we thought we matched into. And then, seeing the film do well really validated so much, not only for me, but my actors and South African stories. So for me, that was the main thing, was that it really made us all feel like everything we did to make the film was really worth it. And in terms of opportunities, I think graduating university, it's very hard because you think, okay, what's next? I've just directed a film, but then you still have to enter into the film industry, figure out your place, and having these awards and having UMAMA as a calling card really, I felt a lot of the time that I was banging on doors and finally people were opening them. And I think had UMAMA not got that success, I would still be banging on those doors, but you keep banging. So yeah.
So you told me you're developing a feature. Is there anything you can tell us about that project?
Not much, but I can tell you that it is Yeah, it's also a true story, which is why I can't say much, but it's a true story based in South Africa. And yeah, that's what I can tell you.
Malibongwe, do you have any projects in motion right now, or can you tell us a little bit about what other kinds of work you're involved with?
You know, I try and do as much as I can, really, but really always trying to make sure that I feed my artist child and the dream in which I've always had to tell stories that exhume the ordinary people. So I try and do that. I have one project that is out now on BET Africa, which I really enjoyed, and it was quite different to sort of play that kind of character. And that is playing at the moment. And I also have a foundation in which I founded in 2018, which essentially bridges the gap between industry professionals and young people that are upcoming. So we try and host seminars and visit schools and trying to just impart the nitty-gritties of the industry, and so that young people can really know what they're getting themselves into. Because I do know, there was a time in my life, and I'm like Talia says, you know, you continue knocking, you never stop knocking and think that you've made it, you continue knocking. There was a time in my life when I was knocking and literally no one was opening, and I know that feeling. And so when I founded this foundation, I knew that I don't want a young person to actually go through that, because I know that feeling. And so founding that foundation really, really anchored my soul. Yeah.
Well, it's so great to have you both here. Thank you for joining us. Stick around because we might have some audience questions in a couple of minutes. And I'm going to introduce the second of our directors again, invite Jaan Balushi to join us. And we're gonna chat about JILBAB a little bit. I have to say, I mentioned this to you right before we went on air today, but I've been in the short film game for more than 25 years, and I think this is the first film from Bahrain that I've ever booked. And one of the extraordinary things to me when I first watched your film was the tone, the humor, irony, irreverence sort of in the first half of your film seemed so unexpected compared to the films that I see coming out of the Middle East. So I guess I have a question for you. Is it so atypical to see this kind of tone as appears in the first half of your film? Or is it just that festivals are picking different kinds of content that tends to be much more serious, social problem kind of work? Yeah.
Thank you. First of all, it's an honor to be with you, with the great guys like you. And it's been an honor, like I'm a first Bahraini or from Middle East joining it with you. The thing is, as you said, we have, like in the Middle East, we don't have such as huge films. We have only short films and dramas a lot and series. We don't have like a cinema actually. We have only few that do cinemas. For me, I have experienced like many years. I've done a feature before, but as you said, it's a new tone for me as well. Like it's a first time experiment I'm doing. It was like focus for the festivals. It's not on a public, but again, it was they liked, even the normal public, they liked the way I did it. It wasn't fully experiment. And yeah, it's different tone. You will not seen this kind of, or even me, I didn't see this kind of tone in Middle East actually. This is just I've tried something new. I've tried and also if you've seen the camera movements, and this is already established because I'm a cinematographer in the basics, so I love to move the cameras and light. But this time I said no, stop all the creativity for the cameras movement. Focus on the character, focus on the subject, which I want. And that was a good point of view for me, as well as I want to learn more in direction. So that helped me a lot. Yeah. And really I got like alhamdulillah, and I got like a few awards. It won a couple of awards in Middle East and other regions, which is good.
As a photographer and cinematographer, do you storyboard? There's so many beautiful extreme long shots and well-designed frames. Do you find that? I mean, do you like to be spontaneous on the set, or did you plan?
No, it was actually fully pre-planned. Like we take like 1 week pre-production, only the storyboarding, the like scene finalizing, designing the clothes, the outfit we want to use it, and everything was pre-planned. Even like one single frame wasn't like just we went there and no, it was a scouting the location before, and it was like a storyboard. Like it was the film was done before the shoot actually, like in papers, and then we went there and. There will always be some like minor changes, and at that set, sometimes we surprise. Like on the first scene, if you've seen like one of the scenes, the guy is sitting in a far area. Actually, we were in the middle of the shoot. They came and asked us, "It's not allowed to shoot here because it's some dangerous area because they are taking the rocks from and then using the bombs there. So it's very dangerous to be there." So there's a factory for the rocks. So yeah, we've done half shot there, and then we went to another location. But as I've been like many years in my country, people knows me though. So the permission and everything was easier for us to take, and we can't shoot, and like it's not an open area, like we can shoot anywhere without permission. So we have to plan everything before the shoot. So yeah, it was a good experience. Like as I'm actually on a production company, so it's very difficult for me like choose a specific time to do my own things. It always hard to do it, but it's good. Another point of view, that's you're learning a lot of things and experimenting a lot of things. Forget the clients and forget the client's requirement.
You mentioned that it was created for the festival circuit, and it's a great runtime for the festival circuit. I'm curious, how intentional was it to keep the film at a 4-minute, like a very quick, you establish a world
that's what my target
with one expectation, and then you do such a great job in a short time sort of recontextualizing the entire story or our perception of the story, just over such a finite amount of time. So yes, curious about that.
Actually it was like planned more than 4 minutes before, but it was like we want to use each frame on that point. We don't want to use any extra. Even the dialogues we written, like it will be short and like pointed on that. So even if you I think you've read the subtitles, but the dialogues is it's against the scenes what we have seen. Like in the scene, it's like he's sad and people are beating him, for example, the guy with the rope. But when dialogue, you can hear the female sound, which is like opposite, and then she's saying like, I'm happy with my life, I'm enjoying my life, and then at the end it's the climax shows. So yeah, that was like I my target was it should be short, should be on point, no need for extra like things. Sometimes we shoot more and then we want every scene because we work hard on that scene, we don't want to delete it. That's why I pre-planned everything, like don't shoot anything extra, shoot whatever we needed on the specific time.
Can you say anything about the meaning of the title?
The title in Arabic is called JILBAB. JILBAB means robe, like something to wear on, some like Arabic ladies do wear fully covers. Like it's a cover, you can say, it's a robe, you wear it. So it's a you can say we target, it's not like a beer robe. He can be anyone in the world. It can be like a father, it can be a brother, it can be a mother. So it's like just like a what we said, this is a symbol, this character, we use it as a symbol, like he can be anyone in the region, in the world.
We discover at the end of your film, and I hope I'm not giving a spoiler to the audience again, I assume people watch the program before they watch the Q&A, but that the principal character is deaf.
Yeah.
How critical was that? Is there a personal connection or an element of the story, or was it just a device that you decided to use to surprise the audience or create a twist at the end of your film?
Okay, that's the main point. I always love the twist and the climax who change the point of view of the viewers. The target was like to every parents, even they are not deaf, even like for me, my father worked harder for us, and whenever we asked him, he said everything's fine, everything is great. I know how hard he worked, for example. So again, we use a deaf because I want to use a lady sound which catch more to the audience, and it shows like people would be surprised, like how can a lady wear this beard and work. And then the surprise shows that okay, deaf people are they're having a hard life in normal being, like in their way. If they go anywhere, it's very hard to them to communicate to the world, to speak to the people. But at the end, when you ask them, they are happy and they never complain to us like their life is difficult. So this was my target. And if I did it directly from the beginning to show the people like he's a deaf people and he's having some problem, it will be like a normal movie. It won't be any surprise in it, or it will be not catchy from my point of view.
Well, your film was a joy to discover. We're so happy to have it in the showcase here. And I see in the chat there are some questions that are happening for you. And stick around and we'll see if some audience has some questions in a few minutes. I'm going to move on to the next film, and although I said I was going to follow the order, I think I'm going to mix the order up because I know Pablo Ortiz, who is the director of Water Dreams, is in an airport in Mexico and having some connection problems. So Pablo, if you're able to turn your camera on, you can, and if that's a challenge, we'll listen to you, but we'll thank you for being here in a tough environment, and so happy to have your film on this program. I guess my first question for you is what drew you to this Mayan story as a Mexican filmmaker? Yeah.
Hello, Mike. Hello, everyone. I'm sorry, I'm on an airport. This was like last minute plan, but I really wanted to be here with everyone, with you. And it's amazing. It's an honor to be here with you. And yeah, about the film, it was since my childhood, I've always like enjoyed the Mayan world and all the Mayan ideas. And when I started like trying to make the like kind of fiction documentary films, I've always been interested to explore the Mayan world, but explore it, it would be like really expensive to do it, like going back to that era. So it was an exploration of more documentary way, an actual way, and a generic way of telling the story with a low budget, and always trying to make it as documentary and real as possible. The actors weren't like acting; that was like most of their real life ambience. So it was easy for them, and just like having a good time trying to find the story on a natural way.
You begin with a title based on Danya Elvia's dream. Is that something that you wrote, or is that sourced or adapted from a legend or a story or some other reference that inspired the content of the film?
I had an idea about a dream. It was a dream about also crocodiles, because they like mean a lot for Mayan culture, that they represent like the water and the dark side of the things. And I wanted to do something with a crocodile, and there are lots around that area. So I told Doña Elvia, have you ever dreamed about crocodiles? And she told me, yes, a lot. So I had a script with like, not a script, formal script, but like ideas I wanted to do. But I prefer not to show her that idea about the dream and let her talk about her real dream. So it was like, in that part of the film, it was like an interview with her, like just talk about your dream, and she talked about her actual dream.
I wonder if you could speak to the kind of experimental structure or design of your film, including the underwater photography. Did you always intend to create the film in kind of a surreal and experimental structure? And what was it like shooting the underwater sequences?
I started to make some trips to that Quintana Roo and Mérida and Yucatan with my camera, and just to explore the space, the possibilities. And I found it really amazing, like the underwater cenote shots, because the cenote has like its own personality, and it was really fun to do these shots, but they weren't like meant for the short film. And then when I was working on the short film, I remember this cenote and these shots. So I came back to the same cenote and just do like this experimental stuff without actors and without story, just like the nature talking by itself.
How did you cast your lead actress, who has such an incredible screen presence? Yeah.
Thank you, Mike. It was like working with them. I tried to find real persons doing the real things instead of actors, but they had like this experience on a local theater. So they had a little of experience on theater, but I tried to just leave them talk. Don Pedro, the chaman, he's a carpenter, but also he's an actual chaman practitioner. So I tried to let them talk and just expose a theme and let them play with that.
Did you shoot it more like a documentary where you were capturing a lot of footage of her, or did you storyboard it? Because the compositions and the staging just seem quite incredible. The shot behind her of the blue water with her looking, they're so well composed. I guess I'm curious whether you came with a very deliberate visual approach, or whether you went to her environment or village and just let the camera roll as much as possible and then worked with that footage.
Thank you. It was a mix of both. I had a storyboard, but a storyboard I made after going to the locations, after going to the places, after going with the photographer, Alexander Jenkins. He's from New Zealand. So we went to all the places and decided, I had like a story, but I didn't had problem if I had to adapt a story by the places or by the new story that the places could generate. So we went to the places, and it was like in 3 days, everything. So we were short in time. In the night, I did some storyboards, like some basic stuff, but to define the places and the hours to have the best light, or to have these moments that can generate an ambience. And yeah, it was a mix between preparation and documentary kind.
Your story weaves in and out with some the juxtaposition of images of what I assume are like crocodile trappers or something. What can you talk about that thread, and is there also an environmental theme or line that you're trying to express in addition to sort of the surreal nature of the dream?
In the beginning, there wasn't that part. It was more like just Doña Elvia story. But then I was tempted to experiment and watch some like a trailer of the other part. Maybe she's having, I'm sorry because I didn't explain that. In the Mayan culture, they believe that if you dream that your animal is in danger, it may be in threat in another place or another soul. So I tried to, without explaining that, I tried to use that essence. Like maybe she's dreaming about this crocodile having a problem, and maybe she's on a more generic era or time, and mix it with maybe some guys going for a crocodile that there's a lot of crocodiles that they are killed by the meat and for the skin, but it wasn't intended to do like an ambience or something about that, but I like just to mention it, just to maybe the dream is in danger because of this reality.
The last question I'll ask you is kind of what's next for you? What kind of work are you doing in Mexico? I assume maybe you're traveling right now for work. Do you have a bigger project or another short film in your immediate future?
I'm working in doing a script for a film, and I'm on that moment. It's more like a music film based in Ciudad de Mexico. But I really like to explore the culture and to make something mixing like fiction with documentary and a little trippy stuff, or like some ambient, some essence of the place maybe, and in terms of short films, I will try to the long film, it's like in 1 year, 2 years, but if I have some time, I would love to keep on exploring with other ideas.
Well, your film, I think, is gorgeous and provocative, and thank you for being in the festival. And if you're able to stick around or answer some questions from the audience, please do. And thanks for joining us while you're en route and travel. We're so honored to have you here. So yeah. Thank you.
I'm honored to be there with you, and I'm sorry for this last minute trip, but I really wanted to be on the festival. So this spot, it's good. The internet now is good. So maybe I can be here without problem on the chat, and an honor to be here with you, and thank you everyone.
Great. So I'm gonna invite our final panelists to chat about Homesick. Please welcome Koya Kamura, who is the writer-director of our Japanese-French production. There's so many things I'm eager to chat about you with related to your film, but I suppose my first question would be the origins of the story, and do you have a direct relationship with the region?
First of all, thank you very much for having me, and I will be pleased to answer all the questions you have. So for the origin of the project, I'd say there's two origins. I'm not related to Fukushima area, but my father is Japanese. My mother is French, so I'm half. And so my father is from Nagasaki, which is south of Japan, and this city was bombed in 45 with the atomic bomb. So I have some connection with this region and with these atomic stories somehow, I guess. So when Fukushima happened in 2011, obviously I was quite in shock, like most of the world. I was in Paris, but I felt that what was happening over there was something that would concern the whole planet. And so, yeah, it took me some time to digest it and understand that I wanted actually to write about it. And the other thing that made me write Homesick is also that in 2012, my first son was born. He's now 9 years old. And as becoming a parent, the parenthood came with a lot of anxiety, and the anxiety of actually losing your kid. And I guess this anxiety and this fear matched the Fukushima catastrophe, and it all blended in this story that made Homesick.
I'm sure the question that is probably burning in most of our audience's mind relates to the production design of your film, which is utterly remarkable. That first kind of long shot reveal of June looking down the street, the animal crosses and the disaster, and then your film just continues with one breathtaking vista after another, all the way through the amusement park. And where did you shoot it? How did you achieve this visual design in the film that's so extraordinary?
It's interesting that you say so, because actually, to me, I guess the film, all what I was saying about the origin of the film and the script, I actually took conscious of that afterwards. When the first thing that I had in mind was actually not the storylines, but mostly the sets and the landscapes and the desolation and all what you've been describing. So it started from here, and from this, I actually implemented my characters in it, and the story that I was talking about came to life this way. But so the way we shot it, sorry, it was tricky. Obviously, we shot in 3 different regions, in 3 main locations, I guess I would say. The first location would be near Tokyo, in healthy area somehow. I would say that. We shot a few scenes over there and chose the location in some places where there was like very old building or some kind of places that could look like they were abandoned somehow. And we actually, with the production design, put some more accessories and stuff in the set to make it look even more abandoned. The other place we shot in is Ishinomaki. It's actually an hour away from the Fukushima power plant. And this is the place where you also have all the refugee camp, the temporary housing. So we shot over there. Sorry, I'm coughing, but it has nothing to do with COVID or Fukushima, I swear. Either way, just a regular cough, it's no problem. And the last location was actually the no-go zone, the actual restricted area, in which we shot for a whole day, actually a little less than a day, because there's a lot of rules and you can go do everything you want all day, and you're followed with someone from the town hall that goes along with you during the whole day. We were in a very, very small team. It was actually the 3 of us, me, my DOP, and an assistant. And we shot most of like B-roll and the car going through the area, and some places like this. But those landscape was actually what I had in mind in the first place. And I thought how to make it look, how to convince the viewer that we actually shot everything in there. And so I guess the shot you were talking about, when you have the first shot of the kid, June, waving goodbye to his father that goes away in the car in the middle of this abandoned street. I guess all my energy was in that shot because it's at the beginning of the film. And I was thinking that if people believe this shot is real, all the rest, we can kind of cheat it. It will be all right. People will be convinced about it. And so this is how I apprehended this issue and this problematic.
What is it all physical production design, or do you use a lot? Is there CG and compositing that's happening as well?
There's a yeah, most of it is actual physical production design, but for few shots, and for this one, the one I was talking about with the car leaving, we added more like dust, and we added more like cracks on the walls, and we like bended a light pole, and that's yeah. The other one is the big shot of the big boat, you know, with the car passing by a big boat. This also was CG.
Talia was talking about the challenge of being a New York film student and shooting in South Africa. What was your experience being a French filmmaker and shooting in Japan? I know you already said you had to have like a permit and a supervisor in some places, but yeah, could you just speak to the idea of shooting halfway around the world from your home location?
I guess it was a terrible idea because it was not only my first film in Japan, it was actually my first film ever. And just as Talia was saying, it's I actually wrote the script without thinking it would ever be produced, because to me it was impossible. I'm based in Paris. My Japanese is like not so good. My story takes place in Japan, in Fukushima, where I'm gonna put an 8-year-old kid in it. So to me, it was just impossible. I just wrote it because I wanted to finish a script for the first time of my life. And so I went through this process knowing that nothing would happen afterwards. Actually, stuff happened afterwards. I found producers and financiers. And during all the way, I was thinking to myself, man, they gotta be crazy, or they don't know what they're doing. But yeah, let's go for it. I won't complain for sure. But my first concern wasn't only to shoot in Japan. It was mostly to shoot with actors. I was kind of concerned how I'm gonna be able to direct them, and I think somehow I kind of thought that maybe shooting in Japanese, for all my French friends and the French people I know that would watch the film, they wouldn't be able to tell if the actors can play and can act or not. So I was kind of hiding behind that. So I guess it was, yeah,
Did you
mixed feeling.
Cast it in France or cast it in Japan?
We did it remotely, and way before working distance, remote working was very fashion. We did it way before, and so I had a executive production company based in Tokyo, and an executive producer based in Tokyo, who organized castings. They would record it, send me the videos. We do the callbacks this way, and we did the callbacks as well on live. I mean, like on Zoom. It wasn't Zoom at the time. It was Skype. Well, still Skype at the time. But yeah, we did it remotely, most of it. And I only met the actors for the first time actually 3 weeks before the shooting, and I was kind of concerned. Was I right? Did I make the good choice? And will be is the remote casting actually works? And actually I think it worked, because I was very happy with the cast, and they were great and amazing.
Yeah, clearly it worked. Both your lead actor and the boy who plays June, remarkably emotive, and the level of empathy I think for the audience and the story is really quite profound. You said, okay, you got to Japan 3 weeks before. I wonder if you could just give us a sense. The scale of your film looks so enormous. And one thing that I think is always interesting to an American audience is the kind of financing model, particularly in Europe, where the government and state grants and other things are much more supportive of short filmmaking, of independent filmmaking. So I guess 2 questions. Can you just speak a little bit about how you put the budget and the production together from a financing perspective? And then how big was, I know you said there were only 3 people, like how long was your actual shoot and production window?
Sure. For the financing part, the budget part, so as I was saying, I first wrote the script without thinking it would ever been shot. But then I found a producer in Paris. I submitted the script to a script contest, a script festival, and I actually got selected. And during this festival, I met several producers, including Raphael, who is my producer. And he actually did exactly what we do, what most director wants to do when they do a short film. You have several people you can go to. You have first state, the government that gives some money to some projects, and you go and see the broadcaster, the channels that will broadcast your film. And so for me, it was sorry, it was Arte, which is a European channel, French and German channel. And I guess the government gave maybe 70% of the budget, and 30% of the budget came from Arte, the channel. And I guess that's it. So we are incredibly lucky here in Paris, in France, and I guess most people in Europe to have this system, because I have few director friends that French directors that also wants to make projects in the US, and the short film industry is completely different. And I think I'm very thankful for this opportunity that the government sets for us. Even though I was sure that my film wouldn't comply to all what they need, it's in Japanese and everything, but it went through, so happy. I'm happy with that. And as for the scale of the film, we shot for 6 days and a half. The whole crew was from Japan, except my DOP, who is actually Japanese, but he's living in France for more than 10 years now, I think 11 years now. So we could make all the preparation in France together, and we did 2 sets of like locations hunting, like 6 months before, and another round of location hunting and like final prep 3 weeks before the shooting. And the whole crew, I guess we were something like, I don't know, maybe 25 people maybe, including the actors and everyone. Yeah, everybody was like, yeah, between 20 and 25 people according to the locations. Yeah, that's it.
Great. I've got the 15-minute warning maybe about 2 or 3 minutes ago, and I'd love to have any live questions from any of our viewers. If you want to put your hand up, we're happy to invite you in. I see a number of questions in the chat that I'm happy to repeat if someone doesn't want to come on screen, but I'll give you just a second if anybody wants to jump in and ask a question directly. I recognize quite a few film students looking at the attendee list. And while we're waiting,
we have a question. Clayton, sorry, Clayton's got a question for Koya. Go ahead, Clayton.
Hi, Koya. I really liked your film. I was curious as how the film was received in Japan, and in particular to the survivors of the Fukushima disaster.
It's a very good question, because I was really very concerned about that. As I was saying, it's not really a joke. I was kind of concerned that the actors would they be well received? Would they sound real or not? And so actually, we had a very good feedback from the festival we did in Japan. Especially one of them is the Hiroshima Film Festival, which is obviously, as it's based in Hiroshima, it's linked to the history between Japan and the atomic bomb or energy, nuclear power. And so it was very well received. I got a really great comments, and many of them was like, it's great that you made the film, because Japanese filmmaker couldn't talk about this problem this way, and which is not completely true, because there's several Japanese filmmakers that made film about it somehow. But it's true that when we were looking for executive production in Japan, where even though we had the budget, we had the money, so we were just about to spend the money with some company over there, and actually it took us 1.5 years to find an executive producer in Japan, because nobody wanted to talk about the subject, or because it was too political or too touchy. The wound was still open somehow.
Great. Thank you, Clayton, for that. And I'll say all the filmmakers, of course, questions are open for all the filmmakers, and all the filmmakers are welcome to join us on camera if you like. Brian, you want to bring someone else in the room?
Yeah, I am in the process of promoting Ethan here to ask his question. I'm just texting him now, so I'm hoping he can jump on camera. Okay, Ethan, if you can hear us, you can ask your question there. I'll just read it real quick while Ethan's connecting. Oh, there you go.
All right, here we go. So I just wrote out my question, but I'll just say it out loud. So for Talia, I was just interested in some of the obstacles that you overcame and learned from, because you said that you're going into this film with a mindset of just learning a lot, and I was just wondering if you can share a few of the things that you encountered and how you overcame them.
Yeah, thank you so much. So the first thing that I learned was through my producer, because we had to raise all of the money ourselves, and there was a lot that we had to do. And she said to me, I think we had some obstacle, I don't remember. It could have been that Kickstarter didn't allow for other currencies to donate, and most of our donations were from other parts of the world. And she said to me, don't worry, if we can't go through the door, we'll find a window. And if we can't find a window, we'll have to jump through a chimney. So for me, that was kind of how we went through the whole process of UMAMA, was literally climbing through windows and chimneys and all of these things. And one of the things I learned was just you don't stop, and you always ask someone, if you can't help me, do you know someone who can? Because then that will open them up to speaking to you and possibly leading you on to somebody else. And I think one of the other things I learned was to enjoy doing it, because if you enjoy doing it, you won't stop. You'll keep going, and it will propel you throughout the entire process. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Just real quick, so when you mentioned, do you know somebody that extension of the conversation, could you give me an example of when that came into play?
Yeah, so for instance, casting was quite tricky for us because I was in New York, and finding actors was quite hard. So going through that, if I was asking somebody to audition, or if I was approaching an agency, I would say, I'm a student, I'm doing this film. Do you know anyone? Could you help me? Or do you know anyone who can? Or if it's for instance, we were looking for food donations. So I would approach restaurants and say, would you be interested in donating a meal to this film? Or if you can't, do you know anyone who might be interested? You know, because then I think people are like, they feel like
stress
I
on
don't
it,
know.
or the pressure. Yeah.
Yeah, the pressure's off. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thanks, Ethan. We have a question from Arthur.
So I have a question for Kiyum. Sorry, I suck at names. The director and writer for Homesick. I was just kind of wondering, like, how much of Japanese do you know, or at least how much you have to learn about that and the customs for making this film? I'm kind of interested in making my own kind of, Spanish film at some point, since a lot of my family comes from El Salvador, but for the life of me, I just can't seem to learn Spanish to save my own life.
It's a very certain question because it was also a big concern for me. I'd say I speak Japanese like I don't know, like a 10 years old boy. So I can have like easy conversation with my friends. I have friends in Japan with whom I'm only talking in Japanese, but it always stay to the like casual level. And as soon as it get technical on the set, and if I'm having trouble finding my words, I had an assistant director that could be the translator between me and the cast. So whenever it was too hard for me to actually make myself clear, he would come up and help me out with that. So I guess it's not impossible to do a film in a foreign language. It's good if you can actually understand a bit. I understand way better than I speak, just because it might help you understand if it sounds right, if how sound the acting. It's quite basic, but still important, I think. But yeah.
Arthur, do you want to, you also had another, just while you're on, Mike, if we still have time, Arthur had a question for Jaan as well, if you want to ask that while we have you there.
Yeah, my question was, what influences did you draw from for your short film, since it was so surreal and kind of out there. Just wondering, like, what inspired that?
As I mentioned, like it's this film was targeted to, like, everyone was like working behind the scene, like the fathers, the parents, and then they never shows to their kids that like we work hard for you. That every time we ask them, like, how was your day? They said very fun, very nice, and then, but I know how hard they work. And again, it's a message for deaf people and the people with some like special needs. They always work hard for minor things, like even to communicate to people. They work hard, but when you ask them, they always smile and they are happy. This is the message I was like I wanted to show. Like, even they in deep, they're like sad maybe, or they're working hard for normal things, but whenever you ask them, face them, they're happy. So we have to thank God about everything we have. Like, we are a normal human being, everything is normal for us. So yeah, that was the target. I don't know, was the question.
I think we have time possibly for one more. We're about 4 minutes out from our hard stop. Clayton, I see your hand back up. If you want to jump back in the room and ask a final question of one of the panelists, you're welcome to do that.
Yeah, I was curious for Talia. You said that this film started out as a project for your sophomore year. When was that? It sounds like this film was a long time in the making. Very moving film, by the way.
Thank you so much. Sophomore year. Well, we shot it in 2019 and I wrote it in 2017. So it's 2 years. And then it took us 6 months. It took us 10 days to shoot and 6 months to edit. And then it was out in 2020.
Well, again, I just want to thank the directors for such amazing stories and participating in the festival this year. It was really our pleasure to host you, and I hope someday in the future our paths will cross and we could actually invite you out to Sonoma County to see our wonderful part of the country. So I wish you well on your endeavors. I encourage the audience to check out all the other great programming in the festival. There's lots of super panels and other short film programs to check out. So be well, everyone. Thanks so much, and hope to see you in the future. Best of luck. Enjoy the festival, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.